also, like when I'm deep, when I know my project, I have a closet that that I've converted into like my writing space, where the only things there is whatever writing tools I'm using. So whether it's the typewriter or just my notebook.
Welcome, gentle listener. In this special episode of The Fearless Reader, I bring you not just one, but 12 different writers. I was recently at the Asia Pacific Writers and Translators Conference in Chiang Mai, Thailand, where I made it my business to track down and interview as many writers as I could. I hunted them in the hallways, on the shuttle buses, at the welcome event, at the after party, and asked them several simple questions about their writing habits. This is a diverse bunch, writers of different backgrounds from different countries, poets, novelists, nonfiction writers, different ages, different genders, and different stages in their writing career. As these short interviews began to pile up, a few things became clear to me. The first is obvious, but there's no one correct way to write. There are many ways to go about it. But then also I realized they were dispensing some pretty good writing advice along the way. So you don't have to pay some fancy workshop fee in order to get it and use it yourself if you happen to be a writer. It is free if you just park your ears right here. The writers I talked to were Tony Waters, Carole Favre, Indyana Horobin, Joe Milan Jr., Kaya Ortiz, Lizzie Packer, Renee Pettitt Schipp, Kadek Sonia Piscayanti, Kian Ronay, Menka Shevdashani, Renee Thorpe, and Sara F Costa. As you listen to their disembodied voices, it may not be at all clear who is who. So after the interviews, I've included a short bio segment, if you will, where you can hear each of them say their own name in their own voice and hear a little bit about them and the fascinating, diverse projects that they are involved with. Question 1. When is the best time to write?
The best time to write is, for me, about 10 in the morning. I get to hear a lot of chickens and water hens and kingfishers, and even a wave or two every once in a while. It's a great time to write.
For me, it's late at night. Probably, between 10 and 2.
For me, always in the morning. I'm very much a morning person, and I try and get a rhythm. And I feel if I can stick to a particular rhythm in the week, so certain days of the week that I write, and certain times of the day. So to get up, go for a walk, come back, read, and then write. Seems to be, and then my body anticipates that that's what's going to happen.
I think there's no best time to write. Any time is a time to write if you decide so.
For me, it's usually in the morning and the late evening. I find out if I start in the morning and go for a couple hours, I run out of gas, and I start fiddling around and going to the bathroom and going to the refrigerator and not being very efficient, so I usually go do something else then. And then late at night, I sometimes get another burst of energy.
I don't know if I've got a best time, but I think when I do write well, it tends to be like late at night or early in the morning, I think, when I just either get up early and just start writing, like first thing in the morning, or at night time when I've sort of got everything else done and I can sit down and focus. I think the cooler times are better for me of the day.
Any time that the poem grabs you by the throat. Because you never know when it's going to strike. And if you don't catch it at that moment, you've lost it forever. So if you think of some great lines at 3 in the morning, you just have to get up and put them down. And I have written poems like that.
Whenever I block off at least an hour and a half, preferably up to 4 hours. These days it's usually in the morning for me, like I wake up and before I have the chaos of the day. So early morning hours, usually around like 6 a.m. until as much time as I can steal.
I think at night. I try to write, in the morning, but I don't know, I always like to get going at night, which isn't the best, but works for me.
So many times, but I think when I'm in pain is a very good time to write, when I process pain, and when that little voice kicks in. So sometimes I lose so many poems because I'm on my Scoopy, on the roads in Bali, and I start writing in my head, and then it goes away. I actually dream of having a chip in my head so that I can access all my forgotten memories.
Best time to write is, for me, right in the afternoon period, 4 p.m. Everyone's coming home right at dusk, just as you can start to smell all of the houses around starting to cook their dinner foods and have their little moments with each other. And unfortunately, you have to skip dinner and write because it's a great time to do it.
I think in the morning, early, like 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. because that's the most silent moment in my life. Yes.
Question 2. Describe your writing materials.
It's always keyboard. Sometimes pen and paper, but if I'm really struggling, or if I want to cut back, or if I want to write something just for someone, I go back to a typewriter and I write on an old 1970s, 1980s Remington. It's a cursive typewriter. Its ribbon is super old and it needs fixing, but it's an amazing piece. I wrote a friend of mine who joined the Navy and he was away for training, and we could send him letters, and these letters were super personal, and so I thought I'll typewrite it, and then it's one of a kind.
What I have found to be one of the most important things is to have the crappiest pen. Well, no, not necessarily. You can have a nice pen, but not a fancy pen. So, like a pen that I really love to write with black ink with when they have like a ball bearing type thing at the end, so it's very smooth and it's not resistant. But when I lived on the Cocos Keeling Islands, once there was a cyclone and the water washed the ink off my page. So now,
oh wow,
yeah, I tend to use more ballpoint pens, but also to just use like really everyday like paper. So to buy a cheap spiral notebook, not to buy a fancy, beautiful leather-bound thing to write in or anything like that, because I feel like that creates a sense of expectation. And actually, if I can feel free to write stuff that's not fantastic from the start, if I can give myself permission to write badly, then I can get past that and write into a better place. But if I have this kind of fancy journal, I feel like everything I have to get down has to be important, and that feels like a real pressure that is actually counterproductive.
And do you ever have the problem that when people know you're a writer, they buy you fancy pens or notebooks as a present?
Yes, and I don't use them. I write other people's poems in them. Like I will write my favourite poems in those beautiful books, but not my own work.
Well, it used to be a pencil, because I would like write and then write again, and then risk like this and then write again. But that was when I was younger. I didn't carry a laptop with me all the time. Nowadays it's in the laptop, and I need a table and no, it's true, I need to be seated and comfortable. So a table, a chair, and a laptop.
On the laptop, yeah, that's what I use.
At the moment, I'm trying to just, old-fashioned pen and paper, like notebook, and just any old pen that I find, nothing special.
Okay, I have a couple of different writing materials. First of all, I have a Surface laptop that I put on a really nice old wooden Javanese kitchen table. and yeah, it feels good. And I've got a remote keyboard, so even though I've got a laptop up there and a feed to a big 52-inch TV screen, because my eyes are bad, yeah, I have a remote laptop. And sometimes I also have like a notebook with me and a piece of paper. It's a bound paper notebook and a pen. I also have several pens with me, and I'll just jot things down when I think of them.
Well, I would generally just use a laptop and then maybe have like a notepad and a pen to maybe write some ideas down on as well. So nothing too sophisticated, or
I used to use a golden fountain pen, I remember, when I was a child in school writing poems. And I once told a school teacher of mine that I could not write a poem without that golden fountain pen. And she said, if you make the mistake of getting stuck with a particular writing implement, that will be problematic. So try and write with whatever you have. And I used to write by hand, but as a journalist making a living through journalistic writing, I found I could not read my own poems if they were handwritten. And I went through that experience several times. And then I realized that you can actually write poems on the computer, and they get saved and they're protected and preserved until you can go back to them when they are, when you're ready for the next line. And the other thing that has worked for me now is the Notes app on the phone. Because I find, if something strikes me, I can just immediately write it down or speak it into the phone, and it's there for whenever I'm ready for it again. I've written a poem in the ICU on my phone, which I thought would be the last poem I'd ever write. Because I was all, I had tubes all over me, and I thought that was my last night.
Computer, I think. Pen and computer. Yeah, paper, pen, and computer. Yes, combination.
So what I write with, yes?
Yeah, like what, pen or pencil, typewriter, computer?
So laptop, and also my mobile, because when I walk by the beach in the morning, if something happens, like I have to start writing immediately. So I virtually use everything that's there. But from laptop to pen and paper and to mobile phone.
Sometimes it's my lap and my computer. I do all my writing, 99% of it I do with on a laptop or desktop computer in Word. I do have a home office, which I like, and I'm very comfortable there. But, I do carry my computer everywhere I go with me, and sometimes I just have a burst of energy.
Writing materials. Right now, what I usually do is I write by hand. I do everything handwritten, and then I'll type that up into either my laptop, or I also use a digital typewriter. It's called a FreeWrite, and I would use a regular typewriter if I could find ribbons, but I usually handwrite it, type it, print it out, go through by paper, type it back in, and I go back and forth in that process, because I find the separation allows me to think more clearly and prevent that writing blindness we all get, because you write all these things that you think you wrote, but when you actually come down to reading it in a different form, you start catching all these things that you thought were there and aren't. So anything from simple does to sentences that sound so awesome in your head, and then you read it and you're like, oh my God, it's.
Question 3. Describe the physical environment where you prefer to write.
This probably isn't great, but I've been writing a lot in bed.
I'm sitting on a chair with a large table. Yes, for me to write notes and books and everything. yeah, around. So I'm kind of physically I need a table and a chair, but table which is large, sitting.
Well, it's at home. It's in the living room and on the couch with the laptop on my lap.
At home alone. So I don't want people to be around. Yeah, I like to be on by myself.
Oh, anywhere where there's people, anywhere there's movement, live cafes on the side of the street, anywhere where there's people moving around. That's what gets the words out. Makes it hard if you've got a typewriter and you want to try and write. That doesn't work. But yeah, anywhere where there's movement.
Just anywhere where I don't have too much clutter. Like if I can get a good desk with just like a blank wall in front of me or something like that, I think that tends to be the best environment for me.
So, long tables. I love long wooden tables. For me, long tables, they have something that's beautiful about them because they give you space where you can spread everything. And they give you a feeling that there is some kind of expanse in that surrounds you. And I love noble textures like wood because they have heritage, they have story, they have something that you can touch, and it's so natural. And I think that when you write, you're connected to nature.
Physical environment where I prefer to write. If I'm just starting a project early on, I like to walk. I try to walk a lot and then stop places. You know, I'll think through something and then I'll stop and write into my notebook. Also, like when I know my project, I have a closet that I've converted into like my writing space, where the only things there is whatever writing tools I'm using. So whether it's the typewriter, whether it's just my notebook and some pens, and prefer is perhaps not the right word for it, but I try to find places where like I'm forced to work and I'm there to work. Sometimes like when I'm walking around, like I get too distracted by everything that I see and I kind of lose sight of what I'm working on. But if it's early in the process, that kind of wandering helps. But when I'm actually like, I need to write this chapter, I need to go to a closet, I need to go to an office, I need to go someplace deliberately to sit down and get the work done.
In my office, I would say, for a couple hours at a go, and then out in the living room on my laptop, and then in my office at the university sometimes.
Yeah, so when I was younger, I could write anywhere, anytime, on the back of bus tickets, on the back of my hand, and then I didn't wash my hand for 2 days. I could write anywhere. But fundamentally, I feel the need for space and silence. You know, it's something that I sort of really look for and I need before I can write my next poem. And I'm always in quest of that. So ideally, I would go away, I would leave my home, I would go out, travel somewhere, find a place where no one's going to disturb me. I can be by myself for 3 weeks at a time, not talk to anyone. I'm very happy with my own company.
Well, I'm very spoiled. I live 5 hours south of Perth in Western Australia, so I live in the middle of the forest. So I have kangaroos lying in the sun outside of my window, and so I write in a very natural setting, and that's really conducive for me. It's very quiet, and I can be very alone, and I feel sometimes my work does need to go into deep places with the content that I'm doing, so it gives me the space to really inhabit those difficult places that I need to write into. The only trouble is that because it's beautiful, I can often end up writing about if I'm writing poetry, I can end up writing about the same things, about trees, about, so that's the shadow side to it, I guess.
Question 4. Describe the sonic environment, the sound space where you write.
Well, I'm very privileged to live in a quiet area. Late at night, I can hear the waves crashing on the beach, and there are night birds I can hear occasionally, and possums on the roof. But otherwise, it's a very quiet environment. And in the daytime, there's lots of birds, very little traffic. And I can't hear the sea during the day, but I can hear the birds. Yeah.
I actually create a playlist, for instance, for writing my first and last novel. To write my novel, I created a playlist to give me the environment that I wanted to have while I was writing, to have the ambient. So I would always play the same playlist. It also helps psychologically to get into the zone of writing.
And what music is on your playlist, if you wish to divulge?
No, it depends a lot on my project, on what I am doing. For Ash City, I had a lot of trap, and I had a lot of vaporwave and stuff like that, because it's very like hallucination, dreamy, this kind of thing. So I decided that this was the soundtrack for Ash City. It's like I'm thinking about a movie or something.
I like having it quiet. I don't have music in the background. I find it important to concentrate.
Yeah, I generally like total silence. Although sometimes I have like ambient music in the background, but on a very low volume, just to sort of block out any other noise if it's not quiet.
So lucky. So there's no traffic sounds, so a lot of bird calls. In particular, a beautiful bird called a white-tailed black cockatoo will call, and ringneck parrots. So a lot of bird life where I am. A lot of, often, especially in winter, a lot of wind and movement through trees. So a lot of that kind of the sound of wind coming off the inlet and over our property. So that's really, and rain. It's quite a high rainfall area. So yeah, very elemental, I would say.
Oh yeah, well I think for my best writing, I prefer not to have too much noise. In saying that, sometimes if I'm just doing a bit of free writing, like just writing to clear my head, I can be listening to music, and that will definitely change the sort of element of the style of what I'm writing. Like if I'm listening to hip hop, for example, I'll tend to write much more aggressively. You know what I mean? But if I'm really trying to focus, I prefer no distractions at all.
Yeah, so like I said, I need complete silence.
Right, complete silence.
And that is a very difficult thing to get in today's time, especially when you live in a large city like I do. So I'm fortunate now that I have a space away from, crowds and noise. But I find that is an essential space. But more than the external silence, there has to be an internal silence. You have to quiet your mind and let the words come. You have to wait to hear them in your own head. And you can't do that with all the noise that goes on constantly inside your own head. So that is the first enemy to fight, that noise inside your head.
Describe the sonic environment. At home, I have 2 little kids. And so they're stirring, they're running around, and so I use like a white noise app and just some heavy duty headphones. If I'm not in the places that noisy, then I don't need anything. I can just without. But I've kind of also turned it into a habit more recently, where once I start hearing these white noises, it helps me just immediately get into the process of whatever I'm working on now, because I'm finding that you have jobs, you have obligations, your brain is always going to be thinking about how to help other people, especially. And it's hard to focus. And so anything that can help you build the habit to immediately, like I'm working on writing, I try to do. And right now, white noise apps seem to help. Sometimes I also will download a bunch of music, make a playlist, and I just listen to the same playlist all the way through. If I'm trying to get into the head of a character or something like that. Right now I got a character that reminds me a lot of Amy Winehouse and a band called the Dead Pioneers, excuse me. So I've been listening to their albums a lot when I'm working on a character.
Silence. No noise at all. Yes. That's why early in the morning is the best.
Yeah, well, I'm in East Bali, and it's pretty wild out there, very rural. Once in a while I'll hear a motorcycle go past, but for the most part I'm hearing waves and birds. I like that.
Chatter, busy chatter, not too overwhelming. Every now and again, I do like to go to the dive bars out in Service Paradise. There's a little suburb off of it called Southport, and it's the diviest of dive bars. Everyone's super dodgy, probably selling drugs, and you go in there and everyone's having this great time, and it's loud, and there are these old arcade machines, and the floors are sticky, and that can be really nice, and it can sort of fill this space and almost act like a kind of white noise, like a tinnitus, and drown out everything else to just think.
Of course, I'm surrounded with noises of crickets and birds and farmers and laughter, and so there is I live in the middle of rice paddies, so there is the whole life of the farmers or the workers nearby, and that I really love, because it can be from the giggling to the plowing to the birds that actually follow the farmers when they're plowing the field. It's quite incredible, because they're doing the machine, but because they are whirling the earth around, what happens is that the birds follow the heron, the white herons, follow the farmer, because they eat the insects that come up to the surface. So you're seeing them. It's like a little army of birds that's following through the field. It's quite an incredible sight. But the song of birds and everything that relates to nature, that's what I love to compose my words to. Definitely, it's like a music sheet in a way.
Question 5. You're having difficulty writing. What do you do?
I have gone through silences that have lasted for 2 years sometimes, 3 years sometimes. And I've thought, okay, maybe I'm done, maybe now I should just quietly shrivel up and disappear and not, I'm never going to write another poem. But then one day I tried this experiment. I said, let me see what happens if I write a completely neutral line. So I just put down, one day, he said. And that can go anywhere. And in 15 minutes, I had a poem that I thought was not too bad. I could include it in a book. I'm very, very particular about what I include and what I leave out. But that particular poem, I thought, okay, it's, it is something I could stand by. And there was another time when I just decided to Google what makes the stars, what makes the sun, what makes diamonds, what makes carbon. And I found, there was its image of this, there is this, reference to a star, and the scientific reasons behind the creation of that star, or the disappear, I forget what the exact thing was, but basically it was an explosion, the star explodes. And there's iron involved somewhere in all that. I do not remember the scientific detail of all this. But I found myself writing a poem, Woman of Iron from an Exploded Star. So I think if you look for that inspiration sometimes, you will find it in unexpected places.
I like to listen to music, which kind of cancels out the having it be quiet thing, but or go for a walk.
Oh man. Okay, to be very honest, you know what I do? I give up, and that's why I've been working on the same novel for 13 years. I have found that the drill of just force yourself to write anything, and very soon you will be writing something usable. That I occasionally apply, and I've been doing that more often, and I'm gaining more traction. I'm literally 7/8 of the way through this novel, so it will be out soon. But it's only because I have forced myself to be a little more disciplined.
I take a break. I play as many video games until my brain turns to mush, and I can't think of anything else. I watch a bunch of horror movies. and I come back to it, and I usually feel pretty good after that. And that's it.
Sometimes I'll stop, but sometimes I'll just try doing a bit of research. You know, I might look something up, or usually I'm motivated to write when I'm doing that. You know, when I sit down with the laptop and I'm thinking I'm going to write something, it's because I've got an idea to start with. So if I don't have difficulty writing so much as prevaricating, making excuses to not do it in the first place.
Read. read. Absolutely. Get a rhythm. So, get a rhythm so that you're not reinventing the wheel every time you come to your desk, that you have a series of rituals or rhythms that you go through in order to write. And for me, also exercise. I find walking gets me into my body, and it will help me drop into more of a right brain space, where it is, if I sit straight at my desk, I might be stuck in a more analytical or prosaic type space, but if I walk, then my mind goes into a more expansive place, and it's a much easier place to write from.
I think for me, I just start writing whatever comes to my mind and just try and clear the mental channels through just writing whatever nonsense comes to my mind until I can sort of focus on what I want to write on. It's like I've got all this build-up of like mental diarrhea I've got to get out onto the page first sometimes, you know?
Maybe I do write in a book first before put it in a computer.
I'm very disciplined, so I will just write until it comes. And if I'm tired, usually if I have difficulties, it's because I'm tired. So I will listen to maybe a yoga nidra meditation. I don't know if you know what yoga nidra is. Okay, so it's called also non-sleep depressed. So do you know Dr. Huberman? Andrew Huberman?
No.
Okay, the God Huberman. So he's a scientist, a professor, university professor, who has these amazing scientific podcasts, but he's also very open to things that are more esoteric part. So there is something which is called non-sleep depressed, which enables you to completely and totally relax your body without having to stop thinking, because I'm a thinking machine. But it relaxes your body to such a way that it feels like you've slept for an hour. And the only thing you have to do is just listen to guidelines. And it's 10 minutes. And after that, it's like, whoa, you're back to normal.
And you are having difficulty writing. What do you do? That is writing. There's no such thing as writer's block. It's that, like, when you don't know the next word, that's you figuring it out. That's writing. And so what I do is I sit there. Sometimes the walking helps a lot. If I'm really stuck, what I'll do is I'll step away and then I'll write about what am I supposed to be writing about.
I sit down and I write. Yeah, I sit down and I write. I mean, difficulty is, it's just a resistance that you have in your head when you really need to do something. And when you really need to do something, that's when you want to procrastinate. So that's when you know it is very important to do it. So just sit down and forget all the procrastination thoughts, whatever, other things that you think you want to do, and just do what you need to do. That is writing.
Who are these mystery writers? Let's connect some names to their disembodied voices, beginning with
Renee Pettitt Schipp.
Renee Pettitt Schipp, who prefers the crappiest pin available, saving the fancy stuff for transcribing the poems of others, has written about asylum seekers in detention on Christmas Island and the Cocos or Keeling Islands. Interestingly, she's published both poetry and nonfiction on this subject. Her award-winning poetry collection is called The Sky Runs Right Through Us, while her nonfiction book, The Archipelago of Us, was released by Fremantle Press in 2023.
Kian Ronay.
Kian Ronay, who tries to write in a clutter-free space, a struggle I know well, is a nonfiction writer and a recent graduate of Griffith University. His memoir about life in the Australian prison system is titled Bad Dog.
Kaya Ortiz.
Kaya Ortiz, who's been writing poetry in bed, is a queer Filipino poet. Their poetry collection, Past and Parallel Lives, won the 2024 Dorothy Hewitt Award and is forthcoming from UWAP in 2025.
I'm Renee Thorpe.
Renee Thorpe, who gave a brutally honest answer about writer's block, is a fiction writer, travel writer, and graphic artist residing in Indonesia and Hong Kong.
My name is Tony Waters.
Tony Waters, who writes quietly on a laptop in his university office, is a professor of sociology. He has too many fascinating projects to describe in this short space, but the one I learned about at the APWT conference is his recent translation of the Thai writer Rong Wangsavun. The English title of this book, now available from White Lotus Press, is The Man from Bangkok. Rong Wangsavun was a Thai writer who traveled to San Francisco in the 60s and 70s with the goal of explaining to his Thai readership why Americans are so weird.
My name is Joe Milan Jr., and I'm the author of The All-American.
Joe Milan Jr., the one who seals himself in a special writing closet and uses a white noise app to cancel out the sound of his 2 young kids. I picked up a copy of his novel at the conference, and it has a rather interesting premise. A young Korean-American man is deported back to his birth country, but he doesn't speak Korean, and culturally he's not in tune with Korea at all. So I thought this was kind of an interesting take on the immigrant novel, a way of flipping it on its head. And also in today's political environment and some of the discussions that are going on in the United States right now, timely in an unfortunate way.
So my name is Lizzie Packer.
Lizzie Packer, who listens to ocean waves and possums on the roof as she writes at night, is a poet based in Adelaide, Australia. She has helped develop and teach writing programs at Adelaide College of Arts and Flinders University.
Okay, my name is Kadek Sonia Piscayanti.
Kadek Sonia Piscayanti, who starts writing at 3 a.m. just for some peace and quiet, has published a poetry anthology, Burning Hair, 2 collections of fiction, and a play. She is also the founder of the Singharaja Literary Festival in Bali.
Sara F Costa.
Sara F Costa, who hectors us that there is no best time to write, any time is a time to write, is a Portuguese poet, translator, and the author of the novel Ash City. If you want to know more about Sara Costa, and you should, she was the last featured writer on this very podcast, so you can go back to Fearless Reader episode number 3 and hear all about Sara Costa in depth.
I'm Indyana Horobin.
Indyana Horobin, who likes to write in noisy dive bars, is a PhD candidate at Griffith University specializing in familial war nonfiction writing.
I'm Menka Shevdashani.
Menka Shevdashani, who once wrote a poem on her phone at the ICU, and who spoke of the need for silence, both external and internal, as I ironically interviewed her in a noisy party environment, is the author of some 5 volumes of poetry, has been organizing poetry festivals for well over a decade, and the recipient of many awards.
Carole Favre.
Carole Favre, who dreams of having a chip in her head to record the writing ideas she forgets, and who loves the texture of long wooden tables, is a poet and novelist who is currently writing bedtime stories for adults. And that brings us to a close. The Fearless Reader podcast is a creation of the Spittoon Arts Collective, a 100% volunteer-run organization. The music is courtesy of Macondo. If you want to find out more about Asia Pacific writers and translators, maybe join, maybe go to their conferences, you can find them online at apwt.org or look them up on social media. Until next time.